there's this kind of concept of manifestation that it's this airy, fairy, fluffy thing that you just write in your journal while you're sitting on the couch and that's it. I manifested today. Like, no, you have to actually like show up in your life and take action. Many people say, Regan, how would I feel what it feels like to be in resonance with my manifestation? Because it's not here, so I don't know what it feels like.
Just you being able to walk away from $1 million business, just saying this is out of alignment and being able to just follow your heart. I mean, that is definitely the secret sauce.
Well, you have your big vision that you're writing out in step one, if you like. Like, this is my purpose, this is my vision, this is what I'm anchoring in. You go as big and unapologetic as you can. And from there...
Welcome to the Path to Purpose podcast, where I share incredible conversations with amazing humans who went through a pivotal shift in their lives that have put them on their path of purpose, profit, and impact. My name's Zarak Fatah. I'm a serial entrepreneur and life coach. I went through my own transformational journey where I'm now committed to living a life of inspiration, education, and empowerment. My intention is to share these conversations so they inspire you to also walk your path to purpose. Welcome back to the Path podcast, where I have the pleasure of interviewing fascinating entrepreneurs who have experienced some pivotal moment in their life which has put them on the path of purpose. And today I'm super excited for this conversation with someone who is called the Manifestation Queen. She is a best-selling author. She is a coach inspiring millions of people. She is one of Mind Valley's top authors, and she is joining us all the way from Costa Rica today here in Collingwood, Ontario. Welcome to the Path Podcast, Regan Hillier.
Thank you so much, Zarak. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy travel and work schedule to join us for the podcast today.
Of course.
Yep. So I'm so excited to learn about your story because I know the Regan from the last 5-6 years. I know the Regan after the success and the blow up of your career, but you have been an entrepreneur since your early 20s, and I'm excited to learn and share your story because, as you're known as the Manifestation Queen, and you have created so much in your life, I'm excited to learn about all of your creations and how you've managed to do this and to be able to share some of your magic with the viewers and listeners today, because you have such a fascinating story. And I don't only know this much about it, and I can't wait to learn so much more. So, I just want to say thank you for being here. I know the viewers and listeners are going to be so inspired and educated by your story. And, I just want to invite you to maybe share with us a little bit about, where did you first get started? Where did your entrepreneurial journey begin way back then?
Totally. Okay, well, let me take you back. So you can probably hear some of my Kiwi twang. I'm a New Zealander, for anyone listening who doesn't know. And I grew up in a family that, loved and still loves me dearly, but was very traditional and wanted me to just really go to school and get really good grades and follow the system and get a good job and go down that path, right? And I'm really close with my dad, and he always said to me, Regan, if I had your opportunities in life, because he got pulled out of school when he was 13 and sent to work, he was I would have been an architect, right? And so when it came to being 17 years old, 17 turning 18, my parents were okay, we have to go to university. What are you going to study? And I had no idea. I mean, I think most 17, 18-year-olds, they don't know what they want to do with their life, right? And so I was oh, I think I want to be an architect, right? Out of this unconscious quest to stay in rapport and connection with my father and please my family. And so I went down that path and I started studying architecture. And I was good at it and I enjoyed it, but I always knew something wasn't quite right. And I remember I walked into this lecture theater pretty early on in my degree, and a new lecturer came into the room. And he walked in and he said something along the lines of, welcome, future architects. Welcome to your future. I want you to picture your life. I'm going to guide you through a meditation, visualization process, right? And I've never done anything like this. He's we're going to visualize the architect that you're born to be 20 years out from this moment in time. And I was okay, this sounds pretty cool. And so I sat there and I closed my eyes, and he was guiding this journey. And I started seeing this vision in front of me of this life and this job and being an architect. And what I saw just made me feel sick to my stomach. And I just knew in that moment, like, okay, this is a path, but this is not my path. I just knew. And there was this voice in my head, and it was like, get out. And I had this moment where I felt like my mind disconnected from my body, and my body just like got up out of the room, and I ran out of that room. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to figure out, why am I here? And how do I create a life that I love? You know, it didn't start with some big grand vision. I was just like, I want to start there. And so obviously I had to tell my father, right? So I went to call my dad. And I remember I was shaking. I was so scared. And I was on the phone with him, and I was like, Dad, I just had this huge process that this university lecturer took me through, and like, I can't do it. I don't want to be an architect. There was like silence. And then he's like, well, baby, like, okay. He's like, I want you to be happy. Like, that's fine. And I was like, what? And then he's like, Regan, he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, just give me a little minute on that one. And so I went to Dr. Google, because that's obviously what you do when you're 17 or 18. And I was like, how do you quit your job? And I started Googling this. And that's when I came across an ebook, which wound me up at my first personal development event, and seeing inspiring speakers in the room, and starting to see that there were other ways and other pathways, and, you know, other ways that you can create a life that wasn't part of that traditional system. So yeah, that's kind of where everything started.
Got it. And when you walked into that room with all these different speakers and listening to these people on stages, I can remember the first time I attended a mastermind type event. I had no idea what a mastermind even was. And I just remembered listening to these stories of people who had overcome these challenges, who had also been questioning their purpose, not really knowing what's next. And I remember just taking a look around the room being like, I need to know who these people are. And this is why I often say, like, getting out of your comfort zone, going to these type of events where you may not know anyone, but just taking that step to put yourself in the room is the beginning of that journey, because often people think they have to have it figured out. Like, you left school without knowing what was next, but you just knew there was something else there for you.
Yeah, totally.
And so being in that room obviously impacted you, met many interesting people, heard inspiring stories. So where did your journey go from there?
Yes, so from there I got very inspired, and I started doing the things that all the people on the stages told me to do. And I started investing in all these different courses and coaching and education, because I was like, okay, this is cool. There's other ways to make money. There's other things I can learn. And I mean, I was a broke university student. I was still at architecture school this whole time. I finished my degree, so I was also still juggling that. I started borrowing money off anyone I could access it. I was getting credit cards, personal loans, and the debt was stacking up and up. I was learning like Forex trading and how to trade a .com business and sales and marketing. So I was investing all of this money that I was borrowing into learning all these different strategies like Forex trading and sales and marketing and real estate. And I was getting further and further into debt. And I had a place where I was over $100,000 in credit card loans and personal loans, not for cars or holidays, but for coaching and education. And I had this moment where nothing in my life was changing. I was trying to do all these things. Nothing was working. I knew a lot at this time, but my life was exactly the same. I was trying to start these businesses. They were failing. I felt absolutely terrible. Every area of my life was kind of a mess. And I remember talking to one of my first mentors. His name was Simon. And, he's an amazing man. And he was, probably at least 45, 50 years older than me, right? And I remember sitting there with him, and I was like, Si, maybe they're right. Maybe my parents are right. Maybe my family's right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like, maybe I should just really get a job and be an architect and just do the path that I was on, And he said to me, this changed my whole trajectory. He said, Regan, you realize whatever you're looking to create, it's 80% your inner game. It's your inner wiring. It's your mindset. It's your energy. It's who you're becoming from the inside out. And then just 20% all this action and strategies on the outside. And he's like, what are you doing about the 80%? And I was like, what do you mean? What is this 80%? And I realized I really wasn't doing anything about it. I had no idea what it even was. And so that threw me onto another path of NLP and hypnosis and energy work and like going deeper down this rabbit hole. And the minute I started doing that and I started really conditioning myself from the inside out, combined then with the action that I was taking on the outside, that's when everything started to shift and things started changing in every area of my life. And it was interesting because some people were watching me, laughing mostly at me through this process. but they saw things starting to move, and they saw I was now starting companies, and they were starting to make money, and I looked happier, and things were different, you know. And some of them started coming to me, and they were like, okay, what are you doing? Tell me what you're doing, right? And I started helping people totally for free, you know, and I just said, okay, well, this is what I'm doing in the morning, and here's how I set up my day, and here's some of my practices and tools, and I use hypnosis in this way. And I started sharing all of this, and people started coming back, and some of them were crying, and they were like, Regan, you don't understand. I've been doing what you said, and it's changed my life. Like, I'm so grateful. And I felt this like interesting like feeling in my stomach. I was like, what is this feeling? What is this feeling? And then I realized for the first time ever, like I was feeling purpose. Yeah. I'm like, oh, like that's what it feels like to care about something that's not yourself. And it's an impact on someone else's life. And so I never set out to be a coach. Didn't really know what a life coach was. None of that. Like I never went down that path. It kind of organically unfolded in that way because I was like, I want to do more of that. I want to help more people like that. Okay, what if I could charge for that? How could I help them in this way? And that's when I transitioned really into becoming a one-on-one coach, and that was my first, I guess, personal development kind of company and mission in this industry.
Yeah, and this is what I love about your story, because many viewers watching or listening to this, you know, they're at that point, whether it be some university student who doesn't love the program they're enrolled in, or whether it's somebody, you know, 40, 50 years old who is questioning their career and their purpose. And, you know, the reason I love sharing these stories is because regardless if you're a teenager or if you're well into your 40s or 50s, it's never too late to change the path that you're on if you're willing to be curious, if you're open to exploring what's unfamiliar and lean in. Because as you said, some people probably laughed at you, mocked you, thought you had lost your mind.
Yeah.
You know, it's beautiful that your father was supportive and was okay with you being willing, wanting to leave school to pursue something new, and the courage it takes to do that. And when people, you know, ask me how was it that I left my 25-year career in entertainment nightlife to do something new, and I tell them it wasn't courage, it was purpose. Because when you feel that, okay, what I've learned and what I'm going through can actually benefit someone else, it pulls you forward. It pulls you into that new way of being, and you realize, like, this is bigger than me. This is who I get to be for others, and I get to use the trials and tribulations and things that I've been through to now impact other people in a positive way. And I feel like when you are operating from that place, you know, God, universe just provides the right people, the right opportunities, and everything you need to just step into that fully, right?
Totally.
So I'm curious, because you mentioned NLP and hypnosis and some other pretty progressive modalities. Now you're in your early 20s and you're just exploring the possibilities of personal development. How did you fall into, or how did you discover NLP and hypnotherapy, and how have you utilized that? Because I know it's very powerful, but I actually don't know that much about it. So can you share a little bit about those processes?
Yeah, totally. Well, I discovered all of that world basically from this mentor that I was talking to, where he said, you know, you need to do something basically about your internal reality. And he at the time was a top coach and advisor for Tony Robbins. And I didn't even know who that was. I didn't know that name, but it sent me in curiosity, you know, looking and diving deep into Tony's work, and then also seeing like, well, how does he get these shifts with people, and how can he stand in a room and someone completely changes their life through their inner reality, you know? And so that's what got me really curious about that. So I started with NLP, which is neuro-linguistics programming, which is effectively, you know, working through the unconscious mind to rewrite the stories and the programs to create something that is more powerful and more useful, that then reflects in your physical life. And then from there, I started coupling that with hypnosis and realizing that if people don't know much about hypnosis, really, like, we're in hypnosis all the time. We're constantly actually going in and out of trance. But how deep are we doing that? And when we're in those deeper altered states, are we able to readjust our internal reality? And so I started in that, and then went even deeper into that, and then realized down this rabbit hole, like, hang on, there's a whole energetic piece that's also very important around this. It's not just a mind. We're not just a mind. We use the the mind to actually shift and alter our energetic field of information, which actually stores all of that. And so it was like working through all these layers and these depths. And even in my work today, if we fast forward to now, there's people can hear in my activations pieces of NLP, pieces of hypnosis. They feel the energy shift. It's like this beautiful accumulation of some of the most effective tools, that I've worked with on the path. Yeah.
Beautiful. And just so I understand, so when we talk about the energetic component, because, part of my coaching process is I help people to transmute those low vibration emotions so that when they go from guilt or shame to joy and gratitude, their resonance frequency changes. And I know you talk about the morphic field and the energetic body and whatnot. So when their beliefs shift due to the NLP or the hypnosis, is that then what causes their energetic body to shift because of the change in their internal state?
It can do. We've got to make sure always that we're updating both of those, because they don't automatically shift one another. They can sometimes by default, but sometimes not. So for example, someone could have a really positive mindset, but if they're not working through their energetic field, they're not able to get their frequency in the place of matching what they want.
Got it.
Someone else could have a really great frequency, but their mindset is shit, and they need to work on that, So it's kind of like separate components, but they do definitely impact each other. And the more work you do on each of those elements, they do go hand in hand in that way.
Okay, got it. Sounds like this is all part of the Manifestation Queens process, which I definitely want to learn more about, but I want to just kind of follow the timeline here. So learning from Simon, learning from different coaches and facilitators, and now you're realizing, okay, so people are coming to me, they're asking me for help, they're seeing my transformation. Could you being the proof is now inspiring other people that you don't have to go down the typical path. And so now people are coming to you and you're now realizing this could actually be a business.
Yeah.
So, and again, I know you as a serial entrepreneur with many businesses. So I want to just kind of understand, like, how did you begin, like, how did the entrepreneurial path open up for you once you were now realizing that you can be a coach that gets paid?
Yeah. And it was wild. I think the amount of money that I've made in my life that I'm most proud of is the first $200 that someone paid me for that coaching, really. And that wasn't for one session. That was for 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I would spend 2 hours on the phone with them once a week doing deep hypnosis. And I charged them $200 total for the entirety of the 12 weeks.
Wow. They got a deal.
It's like the low minimum wage. But I was so happy about it. And it felt just amazing and also really scary at the same time. I remember feeling like, wow, I'm really responsible. This human just paid me money, right? So after I got over all of that and started going deeper and people started getting more results, and I got into a place where I had a lot of one-on-one clients really quickly, and I was like working 8, 10, 12 hours or more on the phone back to back every single day, lit up and on purpose. I was like the happiest 22-year-old you ever find. I was like, this is amazing, until I started to max myself out, right? And I started getting tired and burnt out, and I was like, why am I 22 and I'm feeling burned out? Like, this is pretty wild. And so that's when I said to myself, okay, there's got to be a leveraged way to still help people, but without all of my one-on-one time in here. And that's when I thought, well, this could be interesting. Instead of speaking to 50 people for 1 hour, why don't I speak for 1 hour to 50 people in a room? And so I started playing with this concept of speaking, which terrified me because I'm a massive introvert. And the worst thing in the world that I could think of to do would be public speaking. But when I tuned into it from my purpose, it was so clear, like, this is the next step for you. So I started running my own events in Australia and New Zealand, and meetup.com.
Yep, I do, yeah.
So there's a website called meetup.com, right? And you can, for $20 a month, host meetups. So that's what I would do. I would host them for free. Meetup.com would effectively promote the event, so I wasn't paying for advertising. People would see it, and they would select to come to these workshops. And the first one had, 10 people, then it was 20 people, then it was 50 people. And my speaking went from like absolutely terrible to not so terrible, in that process. And through that, I learned how to also build community. And so I ran a lot of events for free on meetup.com. And I would say, for example, we're going to meet in the park and just like come down, spend 2 hours. We're going to be all talking about, this conversation. And I got to a point where those free events, there were like 2,000 people turning up these events.
Wow.
And it was insane. And it was also amazing. And something was also out of alignment. It was interesting because I remember I scaled that business to be doing just over $1 million a year, and I was 23 at the time.
Okay.
So a lot of people in my life now were like, wow, this is amazing. This is so good. And I remember this moment where I was going in to speak to this room of people. It was about 50 people in the room, and they were coming to one of my workshops after the free meetup. So they'd invested thousands of dollars to be there. And I stood outside the room, and I felt this feeling, the same feeling that I felt at university. This feeling of like, something's wrong, like, get out of the room. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, what is this? Like, I should be grateful. Like, I'm meant to be on purpose. I'm even showing other people how to be on purpose. Like, why am I feeling this feeling? And I was like, okay, so I went inside the room, I fulfilled the event, but straight after that, I said, you know what, I'm going to unplug from this. I'm going to go to Bali, and I'm not going to come back until I know what that feeling is, because I know that feeling, and it means that something's off, something's not right. And so I went to Bali and started asking myself some deeper questions, and I realized that even though I'd created this company and this model, I was doing it in a way where it wasn't really in integrity with who I was. And I was helping people, but it wasn't really the core of what I actually wanted to do on the planet. I was helping people actually with like dating and relationships, and helping a lot of women that were a lot older than me. And it was fine, but there was something that wasn't like my juice, you know, it wasn't like really in the center of my purpose. And I felt like through that whole company that I had to be someone that I wasn't. And I kind of created this mask and this facade. And so I ended up shutting down that business, walking away from it. I didn't do anything smart in terms of trying to sell it or do anything. I was just like, I'm done. I closed it. And this was about 10 years ago now. And this is when I said to myself in Bali, like, okay, I'm going to do this in a way now where it's totally in alignment with who I actually am, without having to try and be something that I'm not. And also I noticed through that business model, I could only fit so many people in the room. And I was like, I'm hitting a cap again, just like I hit this cap with one-on-one coaching. And that's when I said, okay, maybe if I go to the internet, there's an infinite number of people that I could serve and help. And so that's when I launched Regan Hillier International, which is my main personal development company that I have today. I knew nothing about online business. I didn't even get a coach or a mentor to help me or nothing. I was just like, I'm going to just do what feels really good and really aligned. And I launched that. I had no Instagram page. I had 200 followers on my Facebook, and I was starting from zero in many ways. And I launched that company online, and I scaled that to over $1 million in 8 months, which got a lot of attention from a lot of people and media and things like that. And everyone was like, how'd you do it? Like, what was the strategy? What was the thing? And I just kept telling people, like, it's no strategy. I'm literally listening to what feels right. I'm literally just trusting the alignment. I'm plugged into my soul. I'm committed to truth and authenticity, and that's it. And from there, I would follow the flow with that. So that's kind of how I transitioned into the online world, which we have today.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's such a bold example of when you reject the program, the paradigm that it's imposed on you, and you just tuned into your own intuition. You just followed what felt in flow for you, and you were really just operating from a place of service from the heart. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs are in their own way. They're so caught up in thinking how it has to look, what they should be doing, just so focused on one specific business model that they're not leaving room for God's magic to add the details to it, right? Yeah. And with just you being able to walk away from $1 million business, just saying this is out of alignment, and being able to just follow your heart, I mean, that is definitely the secret sauce. And I think that's where a lot of people, they limit themselves because they're just so in their head and not listening to their soul, not listening to their heart. And, one thing I like to speak about with a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with is they're caught up in this hustle and grind mindset. And I tell them, rather than hustle and grind, what about attract and flow? Because when you operate from the heart, that frequency that you're putting out there attracts your dream client and the people that you want to work with and the right opportunities. And from that place, you just get to be in flow, doing what feels most true for you. Yeah. And then it shows up. And for most people, they just can't believe that that's even possible because they're just so fixed on how they think it has to be, because that's the old paradigm. That's the archaic way that we're told we need to work to be successful, to make money.
Totally.
Right? So for anybody watching, here's someone who's created multiple $1 million businesses by being in flow, trusting her heart, and listening to her intuition. So
it's the way forward.
You got to do what nourishes your soul and allows you to be your most authentic, joyful self, and let that vibration bring in the abundance, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I came to label this in my own little world as surrendered manifestation.
I love that.
You know, versus manufactured manifestation.
Okay.
And I feel like most of the world are functioning from a frequency of manufactured manifestation, where they're like, okay, I've got to hustle and grind and like join up all these dots in order to get here and do this. And it's like controlling the process. And the big scary thing with it is that it does work. Mm-hmm. Like I have clients that are generating millions of dollars from that frequency, but at what cost?
Right.
And they're super burned out and they're exhausted, and there's other areas of their life that are suffering because of that. But when you're in surrendered manifestation, you're actually allowing the universe to manifest through you. You're getting out of the way. Yeah. Your job is to open and to listen and to be obedient to that guidance which is coming through. And then it's like you're coming into coherence with the flow of the universe, you know? So you're not the surfer pushing and crashing against the wave. Like you're able to catch the wave, and there are these waves of momentum, and that can feel scary. That can feel like you don't have a plan. That can feel like you're not in control of the process. But if you're really brave enough to get into this frequency, like that's where the magic happens. That's when you can quantum leap. That's when everything can manifest in a way where you're like, how does it get to be this amazing, right?
Yeah. And I believe that God wants us to be wealthy. God wants us to be a service. And when we, as you said, surrender manifestation, just allow God to work through us, it's possible. And as you mentioned that, I just thought of the book, Michael J. Singer's book, The Surrender Experiment, because, here's someone who became, I believe he's even a multi-billionaire, as a result of just getting out of the way and just letting the opportunities, letting God work through him. And it's again, for most people, it's hard to believe because we're taught the exact opposite, right? We got to work harder than the next guy or girl. It's like, no, it's all about no pain, no gain, and all those, cliche sayings that keep us, hustling and grinding and just burning ourselves out. Right. And many, many miserable millionaires out there who are disconnected from their family. Totally. Their health is compromised. Even though they have millions in the bank, it's like you're sacrificing something that money can't buy back.
Exactly. And when you're in this frequency of manufactured manifestation, you're in contraction because you're trying to control the process. And I say trying because we can't even control any of it at the end of the day. But we're in this place of contraction, and you can't be in contraction and expansion at the same time. And so if you want more abundance in any area of your life, you've got to actually open up and expand and receive that. It's this beautiful dance between the masculine and the feminine. The manufactured manifestation is like a distorted masculine way of like, I'm just going to push through this, versus it's also not just like, oh, no, I'm in the feminine. Everything will just like show up if I have a bubble bath. Like, no, it's like, it's this balance of both, and it's actually like the masculine precision and clarity on like, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm choosing from my soul. And then the surrender opening and flow and like allowing that to come through you. And then the masculine action taking, and then the surrender to recalibrating it and listening. And then you take action again. So it's like this pulsation, but that in and out in that spiral and that pulsation can't happen if you're stuck in that one energy,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I've seen many of that with the females who are entrepreneurs who get too much in their masculine, men who are too in their masculine, just don't know how to nourish themselves, don't know how to take care, don't know how to, be present and take that time just to enjoy the feminine energy within them, and it comes at a price, right? Yeah. So I would love for you just to share a little bit about the different ventures, different projects that you've created. Again, maybe it's my ignorance, but I feel that most people know you as obviously best-selling author, world-renowned coach, and retreat leader, and all the things that you do. And what I'm discovering is you have all these other interesting businesses as well. So from becoming a coach and going online and then scaling your business, what was the expansion there, and that led to the different businesses and projects that you have now?
Yeah, totally. Well, I feel like I'm just, again, always in this place of expanding and listening and like, okay, what's next? And really like open to the possibility and the potentialities of that. So yeah, some of the things that have unfolded, I guess, as separate companies, but for me, they always click into my core mission and this core heartbeat of helping people have it all in their life, like in whatever way that looks like for them, So some of the beautiful projects around that, for example, I have a publishing house called Have It All Publishing. And so, there was a big journey that I walked through with traditional publishers and publishing some of my books. And I was like, I don't like this contract. I don't like what it says. Like, no, that doesn't feel good. And I think from what I knew as an entrepreneur, I could read that and see that. But a lot of authors don't know, especially if they're not entrepreneurial and they just have written an amazing book. And so I wanted to create a system, for example, to support that. And then another mission that got layered in there is my swimwear line, Ascension Swim. And this came from my deep love and connection with the ocean. And I was brought up on a boat and spent a lot of time on the water in New Zealand and have traveled to a lot of places also where I've seen where we've abused our waters. And there's so much rubbish and trash and animals being hurt. And I was in a big moment with that where I said, what can I do about this? This seems like such a huge problem. Okay, I could donate some money, but what could actually help a little bit around this? And so that's when I created the swimwear line, and the swimwear is made from recycled trash. So we take all the trash from the oceans in Bali, and it gets fused and shifted into a fabric, and people are literally wearing trash, but it's beautiful and it looks like amazing swimwear and is really pretty. So that's really sweet. And then we have a give back, which is always linked to the whales or the sea turtles, or, we work with different campaigns through there. So yeah, there's a couple of other e-commerce brands. And then I also have The Nest in Costa Rica, which is a beautiful community, which has been dialed in with a biohacking spa, and people are starting to build their homes. We're doing a school for the children. So yeah, lots of different layers to the mission.
Beautiful. And that's impressive, because on top of everything you do, you also have these legacy projects that you're creating that are amazing. So, I get that architecture wasn't for you, even though you love and appreciate interior design, and you're even partly responsible for the architectural design and creation of the Nest, which must feel really good.
It feels really good. It's like a 360. It's like you turn around, you're like, oh, God knew what he was doing. It's it's wild. And it has helped me a lot. That degree has helped me a lot, actually have this deeper understanding of spaces and flow and materials, and I can read architectural plans, and it's pretty wild how it's come all the way back around as the physical architecture in that space, and then simultaneously helping people re-architect their reality. So yeah, it's interesting.
And your dad must be very proud.
My dad's very proud. He's fine. He's fine. We don't worry about him.
So with choosing to leave architecture school, or choosing to pursue something other than architecture after you finish got your degree, and discovering life coaching and NLP and all the things that you do, I'm curious, because entrepreneurs are a special species. They're obviously not normal, because of people who
definitely not normal.
Yeah, will put it all on the line and risk working 100 hours a week, for themselves, often without a paycheck. So where do you feel your drive comes from to constantly create and expand and do more? Where does that inner fire and passion come from?
That's a great question. I think there's a few layers to this. I think some of this programming comes from my father, and my dad is a really beautiful entrepreneur on a small scale, in the sense that he had, small family companies, maybe 2 to 3 staff maximum. But regardless of the size of that, I saw his entrepreneurial problem solving mind of I'm going to figure this out for my family. And I saw him, he had a graphic design company that would do, logos and signage for hotels and things like that when I was a child. And I saw him land huge international contracts in India and Thailand and in the Maldives and all these places when I was younger, when he was a tiny little firm in New Zealand in the middle of nowhere, competing against giant graphic design firms in America, for example. And I used to be like, how is he doing this? And as I got older, I started asking him questions, and I realized he was so clear on what he wanted to go and create and achieve. And then he understood the power of relationships. And so he was the type of guy where if there was a contract pending in India for a hotel signage contract, he'd be like, no, like we're not going to jump on a call. Like, hey, let me get on a plane. I'll come and meet with you. And they're like, but you're in New Zealand. He's like, yeah, but it's good we like sit down. And he would say, chew the fat and have a coffee, right? It's good we do this in person. And he'd fly himself there, having next to no money, sit down with someone and build a relationship with them. And at the end of it, they would be like, well, of course we'll hire you, not the giant in America that we don't even know that wants to have a Zoom call, or a Skype call at the time. It probably was, right? And so I saw this spirit. At the same time, I also saw the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, and I saw the moments where as a family, we were like, yay, everything's really good. Okay, no, like, can we buy food right now? So I definitely saw that. And there was a part of me that always thought, I don't want that in my life. I don't want those extreme highs and lows and ups and downs. And that was a lot of work that I got to do within myself to recalibrate that, because definitely that polarity swing was programmed into my system. So I think some of it was from that piece. And also, I think this fire comes from just wanting to contribute to something greater than me. It comes from this like burning desire in my heart. Like, I want to leave this planet better than how I found it. And how that looks, I don't really mind. And how that unfolds and whatever money or company or whatever that is, cool. But like, have I made a difference? And if I leave here on this plane tomorrow, is there some sort of legacy that's been created that's really done good things for this planet and the vibration of the planet? So that's really the thing that like pulls my heartstrings forward. Yeah,
I love that. And that's a common thread through all of your companies is that the element of purpose and the longing to do something that has a positive impact on other people.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at things in the world that quite honestly are a little messed up. Like, we were sharing the other day around one of my missions, which I'm just in the startup process with right now, around diamonds, right? And how, if you go into the diamond industry, like that's a mess when you start looking at how things are like overpriced and the slavery and they're blowing up the planet. And I never had diamonds because I was always like, I don't really want to be a part of that system. And then recently, I've partnered with a good friend of mine and we've created this system where we're taking excess carbon from the atmosphere and then recalibrating that into a diamond, which is classified as a diamond, is legally a diamond, it has certificate, carat, weighting, flaws, all of it. But it's not mined, it's actually from the sky, and it's helping rebalance the atmosphere at the same time as doing this, and it's more cost effective because it short circuits all like the slavery routes, which diamonds are passed through usually. So, things like that, where it's like, it can still be a really beautiful like offering to the planet, but it's also helping to solve a bigger problem in some ways. Yeah.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And the company's name is called?
Well, it keeps changing, but for now, it's called Conscious Diamonds.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've probably pretty grounded on that.
Okay.
Yeah. We're in the real startup right now. Like we're building prototypes, building the website, figuring out the logo of it. It's exciting.
Is that one you're wearing there?
Yeah, it's one here and also here. I married myself years ago in Bali, and had a tiny little ring and switched it out for like
That's a nice upgrade.
Yeah, it was a good upgrade. Yeah.
That's a beautiful gift to yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
So, a lot of people who watch or listen to this podcast are wanting to make a shift. They're wanting to follow a new path in life, and they're looking for purpose. They're looking for something more meaningful, and it seems like both yourself and I have had that shift where we have discovered our gifts and we know that we're here for a reason. We're here to help make the planet a better place after we leave than as we arrived. And, I'm wanting to know if there's any information or any tips or guidance you could share with anybody watching or listening who maybe is in a place where they're not completely happy with their life. They know there's something else out there for them. What would be some of your tips that you would share with them to help them find what their purpose could be?
Totally. Yeah, for sure. Well, I remember sitting down at a young age and being like, what is my purpose? And even what is my vision? What do I want in my life? And I used to draw a blank. And then I used to feel really weird and bad that I didn't know, because it felt really weird. It was like, how hard is this? What do I want? I don't know. Why don't I know? That's weird, right? And so I realized I had so much conditioning, firstly, from my family and also from, people at school, teachers even, like, what are you doing? Pay attention, stop daydreaming, like, come back to this reality, live in this box. And I just like shut down my capacity to dream. So I think for so many people, it's important to start there and really spend the time asking yourself, what is my life purpose? What am I here to do on this planet? Who am I really? And what do I want? What do I want my life to look like? So many people never get what they desire because they never actually choose it, because there's all this conditioning, right? And so you're only going to go into that if you sit down and actually write this stuff out and start trying things on. And don't be afraid to get it wrong. There is no wrong, actually. It's more like you can write it out and be like, okay, well, maybe my purpose is this. And you write it down. You're like, maybe not. And then you write something else, maybe this, right? Okay, that feels better. And I promise you, you'll keep going, you'll write something and you'll get full chills. And you'll be like, that would be incredible, right? And then you start doing that. You start trying that on. You start taking action and living your life in alignment to that. And then maybe, you go, you know what, it was there, but not quite. And you readjust and you keep flowing. We're not pouring concrete on this stuff. And I think that people get worried that they have to get it perfect and they have to get it right the first time and they need to know how everything's going to be planned out. But again, when we're in this surrender manifestation, can you just see a couple of steps in front of you? That's all you really need, right? So I would start there. And then the next layer to this is that it's important to expand your capacity to actually receive that, because many people have a vision or a dream and they're like, okay, this is what I want, but then it doesn't come to fruition because they can't hold it energetically. And so one of the ways I like to play with this is talking about it in the sense of, well, you have your big vision that you're writing out in step one, if you like this is my purpose, this is my vision, this is what I'm anchoring in. You go as big and unapologetic as you can. And from there, for step number 2, I love having people ask themselves, well, if that was already my reality, if that was done, if I woke up tomorrow and it was like, oh, I'm living in that, what would you pray for? What would you ask for, right? What would be that next level? And this is normal to feel like your system's going to break when you do this. It's kind of like, I don't know. I just went like really big on step number 1, right? But allow yourself to be in it and be like, okay, well, for example, if it was like a life where you're earning $100,000 a year, if that was done, you wouldn't be like 100 the next year. You'd be like 120, 150, right? Whatever it is. So you define that. And what happens unconsciously is you start moving through what I call the upper limit, and we have these caps in our unconscious mind where it's like, okay, that's our comfort zone. And if we can show our system that actually beyond this big vision in step number 1, you're not going to die. It's not a big black hole. Actually, it's going to be very good. And there's this next thing coming. The big vision in step number 1 becomes a stepping stone. It becomes a natural layer that you just must actually pass through in order to get to the next place. So the third layer to this is then to look at anything which is coming up which is not aligned to that within you. And we all have this. This is the fear, the self-doubt, the limiting patterns, right? Self-sabotage. And can you be humble enough to actually put all of that on the table and be like, okay, those are not my limits. Those are not me. Those are just programs running. And from there, you can alchemize them, move them, shift them, and you could using breath work or journaling or whatever tools you like to make sure that those limits aren't controlling your frequency. And actually, you're using them and shifting the energy so it can be in motion to actually move everything forward. And then the fourth tip or step around this would be to come into embodiment of your highest essence, right? So we don't get in life what we do, but we do get who we choose to be. So if you're able to connect with the version of you that's already living into that vision, right? The version of you that's manifested what you want, and you start being that version. Ask yourself, how does that version walk and talk and think and act? How do they dress? How do they be? How do they communicate? What's important to them? How do they wake up in the morning? What do they say yes to, no to? What is their frequency? What are they committed to? And you ground into that, but then you start living from that place, right? And then the fifth piece is to then go and do it all, right? Yeah. Take action, right? Manifestation doesn't happen just from sitting there and writing things in your journal, right? It's actually then being in the embodiment of that, calling the person, starting the business, going to the meeting, doing the scary thing, right? And from that frequency, you start accelerating it. So yeah, those would be 5 things people can ground into.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's powerful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
and I can even hear in your story how you started offering coaching for people, even for free, even though you weren't a coach yet, even though you were just learning, you were just putting it out there, allowing yourself to feel what the experience is like and receiving the gratitude and seeing the shift in other people. Even though you didn't have it all figured out, you at least took that step because there was a vision you had, and you didn't even know what that vision was going to be because you didn't even think you were going to be a coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get stuck. They think they have to have it all figured out. Then the imposter syndrome starts to kick in, and then there's all these things that hold them back from just taking that first step. But once you start walking, once you start getting momentum, it just gets easier and easier. Yeah. And, I could just even speak to that from my own, going from being a nightclub guy to hosting retreats and then becoming a coach. Like, I never thought I was going to be a coach because I'm like, I'm a high school dropout. Who's going to hire me? And it's same from people asking my advice and asking for suggestions that I was able to, okay, maybe there's something here to it. Yeah. And I believe that, it's just taking that first step, being of service, operating from a place of altruistic intentions, and just wanting to be of service. Yeah. Because once you get that taste of purpose, you realize, oh, wait a minute, this feels better than anything else. And then once you realize like that's the next level, you realize there's something greater out there for you.
Totally.
So, given that you're the queen of manifestation, or the manifestation queen, I forget how mind valley.
It's not a self-created label, so you can say it as you like.
So for those of you that don't know, Mind Valley is the #1 personal development company in the world with amazing events like A-Fest and Mind Valley University, and they have hundreds of programs with some of the world's top coaches, speakers, authors, and Regan is the #1 coach on Mind Valley, and everybody wants to manifest their dream life. For those who have any understanding of what manifestation means, and of course it's a real big buzzword these days, as people are starting to realize that, hey, we can actually think things into existence, that we can actually use intention and mindfulness and tap into the quantum field. Thankfully, due to people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's now educating people on the fact that through our higher states of consciousness, we can access the subconscious and we can plant those seeds to create a reality. And people are now realizing that there's a different way. Rather than matter moving matter and forcing things, we can use energy, we can use frequency to have energy move and manipulate energy to create what we want in our 3D world. And it's an exciting time that more people are starting to understand and grasp this concept. And I feel that's a big reason why people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, people like yourself are in such high demand, because people are now wanting to learn how to manifest because they're tired of the hustle and the grind and working themselves to an early grave. So I would love to hear you share a little bit about how you describe manifestation. So for anybody listening who may have no clue what manifestation means, or the quantum field, or any of that, I would love for you to maybe just, share your explanation of it for someone who is curious or has just no awareness of it, so that they can understand that there's a whole realm of possibility that's already within them.
Totally. I love this. So simply put, manifestation is the fusion of the art, the science, and the magic of effectively translating that something is unseen or ethereal, like an idea, a dream, a vision, a prayer, and translating that through you into the physical reality. So then it's actually there, like in your life. And the cool thing about manifestation is I believe that we're all manifestors. It's not like some God-given gift where like, oh, that person's a manifestor, but that person's not. That person can manifest, but that person can't. It's our God-given gift. We all have this because everything that we do and don't have in our life, we've actually manifested. And when you realize that and you can take responsibility for that, even if that's like painful to actually go like, whoa, okay, and you realize that, then from that really empowering place, you can start to shift that. And then once you learn actual tools of manifestation that actually work, that's when things can really accelerate. And you really come into your own, I guess, personal power, and remembering how powerful you are as a sovereign manifester that can create anything you desire in your life.
Yeah. And for some people, again, just the concept of, wait, I can visualize something, I can feel into it, I can journal about it, and then it's going to start to happen. I mean, yes, that's part of it, but then you have to take aligned action every day. You have to actually have a plan and then take those steps. Even small incremental steps over the course of a few months, a few years will make it happen. And even though you said, people are or aren't, everyone are manifestors. I'm actually, my human design is manifestor. So I'm one of the 8% of the population who are manifestors. And I never knew what any of this meant.
Yeah.
But when somebody told me about the process of manifestation, about having a vision, closing your eyes, being able to see it, being able to feel the experience, being able to write it down, and then from that vision, starting with the end in mind, having that vision, being able to, I remember I would walk into an empty space when we were considering opening a restaurant. And I could walk into the empty space, I could close my eyes, and I could smell the food, and I could hear the chatter of the clients, and I could look around and I could see people enjoying a delicious dinner. I could already be in the experience, even though it was maybe a year away. But from that visualization, the emotions I felt and the sensory experience I had, I was able to then write down all the different details and elements and characteristics of that business. And then that gave me the plan to now create the blueprint and work forward with. Now, that's something that's just always come natural to me. However, if you read certain books like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or some of these other publications that speak to manifestation, it's somewhat of the process that they speak to. And that's why it's important, like, yes, to have a vision and to be bold and audacious and let your vision be as big as you can, but then allow yourself to feel, what would that be like if I actually had it? And let the emotion, the bliss, the joy, the gratitude of that experience, let that land there within you, and then create from that place and put pen to paper and start to write things down. And then this is where the hard work happens, where most people fall off, is you need to have the discipline and the commitment and the integrity to yourself to take that inspired action each and every day. Because what do they say? An idea without a plan is just a dream. I might be butchering that, but something
we get it.
Way that, and manifestation is a very real thing. It's very powerful. And as you mentioned before, we're always manifesting. Most people are always manifesting unconsciously because their beliefs are calling in certain experiences. Even though they don't want that experience, they're calling it in because their belief system is actually attracting that. And that is very important to know. Like, for any of you watching or listening, if you don't want to believe in manifestation, if you're skeptical, that's okay. But at least believe that you are calling in some of the negative experiences that you don't want. And often people are shocked, and I think even somewhat offended when I tell them, you're 50% responsible for everything in your life. Even that fight that you got into with your mom, you're 50% responsible. And when you can take ownership for the fact that, there are things that you're doing unconsciously that are creating the things that you don't want in your life, that's the first step in changing that situation. That's the first change. That's the first step in transforming that situation or relationship that you might be dealing with.
Totally.
And I think that's where it begins for most people. Because until they can at least acknowledge that, they're going to keep running the same loops and patterns over and over again.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, totally. And, you touched on something important there, the action piece around it, because you're right. I think there's this kind of concept of manifestation that it's this airy, fairy, fluffy thing that you just write in your journal while you're sitting on the couch and that's it. I manifested today. Like, no, you have to actually show up in your life and take action and be committed. And like you said, that discipline. And can you find the blisscipline in that discipline, right? It's like, I always play into that. Okay, there's discipline, but can I find the bliss in taking this action when I'm coming from this place of alignment? And when you're taking that action, if you've done this internal work to ground into your vision and expand your capacity and clear out those limits and be that version of yourself, and you're at this place now where you're like, okay, now I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to call the person. I'm going to have the conversation. I'm going to go for it. What frequency are you doing that from? Because some people mess this up and, they get into a place where they're like, okay, I've done my manifesting. Now I'm going to do my life. And they go out there and they say like, all right, well, this vision, this goal that I have, how do I make it happen? Right? And that's generally the question they ask. Okay, I want to manifest this much money. Now, how do I make it happen? And when they say that, they're actually functioning from a frequency of fear because they're putting their manifestation on their shoulders and saying, how do I make it happen? I don't know how to make it happen, which means it may not happen, which means I've now got to, once again, push and hustle and struggle to get into this frequency of trying to push this manifestation forward, which just does not work. It just actually undoes all the manifesting work that you just did. So instead, when people take this action, they can be saying, you know what? What if I really know that I know that I know that my manifestation is done? I can feel it. I can connect to it. I feel like it's in my future. It feels aligned with my soul. It's something that I really deeply desire. I choose it. I'm aligned to it. I've expanded the vision. I've cleared out any resistance. Like I know that it is done at some point, right? Okay, from there, what do I get to do right now in order to accelerate the process? So this is not how do I make it happen? This is how does it get to come into my life faster? And all of a sudden see the frequency shift, right? It's like now, not from this place of fear, it's from certainty. It's from deep knowing. And it's a curious conversation then around, well, how do I play with the time? How do I bend the time to allow this to appear even faster than it is? Because I know that it absolutely is. I feel that is my manifestation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's important to notice is if you can't truly believe that it's yours already, then what is the work that needs to be done? What needs to be healed for you to have that shift in belief that, no, it is yours already.
Yeah.
But that wound that you have yet to deal with is actually what's keeping your goal, your dream away from you. You're unconsciously pushing it away because, again, many people don't want to go to that place where the trauma or the wound was created.
Yeah.
And that's why the deep work is needed in order to experience the bliss, the joy, and the gratitude.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whatever's showing up in our life, even if we don't like it, and there's a scenario showing up that keeps showing up, it means that energetically that person's in resonance with that experience.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And so if we can see that and we can, like you're saying, do the work and heal that, and which part of myself is that, we can then actually attune our system to come into resonance with what we want and actually bring in that frequency. Now, many people say, Regan, how would I feel what it feels like to be in resonance with my manifestation? Because it's not here, so I don't know what it feels like. And this is where you must actually cultivate that feeling. This is the work to actually create that within you. You never know what anything feels like, really, until it shows up, but you can tap into the energy of it. And so, something that everyone can do listening and watching is what I call energetic conditioning. And you can use manifestation alarms. So you can set an alarm, on your phone, ideally like once an hour, multiple alarms per day, and a good alarm. That's good for your nervous system, like not a brah, brah, like a good one, right? So when it goes off, you want to stop and just for like 20 seconds to maximum 2 minutes, no longer, close your eyes and simply tell yourself, okay, how does it feel if my manifestation was here now? If it was in my life, if I open my eyes now and my manifestation was here, maybe you feel happy, maybe you feel grateful, maybe you feel relieved. Whatever it is that you're feeling, feel that. And then when you feel that feeling, tell it to double, tell it to triple, run it through your entire system. Ask it to turn it up. Ask it for it to be stronger. Breathe into it, right? And sometimes when you do this, guys, the first couple of times you might not feel anything. You might be like, oh, it doesn't work. Like, keep going, right? Some people are like, I went to the gym once and I trained my bicep for 20 minutes and nothing changed. And I'm like, well, like you might need to do it again, right? And so it's the same with manifestation. It's a practice. And the more that you condition yourself energetically, something interesting happens. I promise you, that alarm will go off and you'll be like, oh, I kind of feel like I'm in the feeling of it. It's interesting. Okay, I'll close my eyes. I'll feel it more. But you're kind of in it. And then you have this moment where it's almost like your dream and your reality start to blur, and your life feels a little lucid, and you feel like the manifestation's here, but then your mind's like, wait, it's not here, but I feel like it is here. And this is a good thing, right? This means that you're getting really close, basically. And then you will have a moment where either that alarm will go off or you'll open your eyes and you'll realize, like, okay, everything around me I have intentionally manifested, and here it is. And that's when you reset and you set another alarm and you keep going.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's definitely going to be valuable for people.
Of course.
And you mentioned one keyword that I want to talk about, because I know this is one of your manifestations as well, biceps.
We can talk all about it. What do you want to know?
Well, in the last year, you have gone through quite a physical transformation.
Yeah.
And you've manifested this new physique. Now, I know from what you've shared before, you've always been active to some degree, but it's like in this last year that you've really had this shift in your physical being, your fitness. So can you share a little bit about that journey and what inspired you?
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been a really big journey. I don't know how long you have to go into this, but it's been a long journey. I battled a lot in my past with eating disorders and with body dysmorphia. And I was in a place where I was like very sick, really, in my mind and my physical body. And I had really an angel walk into my life at a young age and help me actually see the dysmorphia and actually see like, whoa, like what I think I look like is not what I actually look like. And my goal was just be skinnier. And I was really unhealthy. I think really I would have killed myself if I kept going on that pathway with the trajectory that I was on. And so there was a lot of healing around that, a lot of internal shifts around that. And, I got to a place where I was a lot healthier with my body. And, feeling better internally as well. And then recently, probably about a year and a half ago, I had this piece hit me with all the work that I was doing with manifestation and frequency and all these pieces. And I was thinking about how, with the manifestation process, we're taking something that's a vision, a dream, and we're anchoring it really through us and through our body into our life. And I thought, what if my body was stronger to house some of the higher frequencies that I want to bring through to change my life and my world and my reality and the planet? And I realized that my body wasn't separate to any of that. And I think it was an area of my life that I kind of thought, okay, my body's fine now. It's healthy. I'm fit enough. I'll be fine. But then when I saw it from this perspective, I was like, well, hang on, this is like a divine vessel, tool, template, and temple, which I could be attuning a lot more at a deeper level to actually embody more of what I desire. And so that took me into an interesting journey and really trying to get stronger, from a physical perspective. And for the first time in my life, I was like, okay, well, what does it look like to put on muscle and like eat more? And like, and honestly, even the eating more thing was challenging at the beginning because I still had so many programs of like, oh no, you don't want to overeat. There was still so much of that sitting under the surface, which I got to look at. And then, probably I think it was about 8 months ago, I ended up being contacted by Strong Magazine, and they reached out and they said, we want to feature you and your story with manifestation, but we're really curious around your body and like the journey you've been on, which I hadn't really spoken much about. And I told them like, well, there's definitely a story there and a journey, and we can unpack it if you want. And so they said, okay, let's do this cover shoot. And I used that as an excuse to go even deeper into my physical body. And yes, the training and the eating and the supplementation, but even more so the mindset and the frequency and using everything that I play with manifestation to shift and sculpt and upgrade my body. And it's been a beautiful journey and it feels really good. Yeah.
And you should be very proud of yourself because
thank you.
You've been amazing. Congratulations on the strong cover and like 20-page feature they gave you.
Yes.
It's a beautiful story, and it is very inspiring because both men and women out there dealing with body dysmorphia, insecurities. I see more so now than ever before with Instagram and all that. So I think your vulnerability and you sharing and letting the viewers and listeners know that you had to go through your own trials and tribulations to get to where you are now. And again, it comes down to mindset, comes back to shifting the belief.
Yeah.
Thankfully for that trainer who had you see yourself in a way that you didn't, you realized, I didn't want to look like that.
Right.
And also, obviously, being fit into physical activities, I can relate to what you're sharing about when you have that goal for yourself, when you stretch your capacity, when you increase your physical capabilities to tap into a next level of what you didn't even think was possible.
Yeah.
the joy, the gratitude, the pride you feel in yourself, that radiates in your field. That is also part of what allows you to feel that bliss, that joy, and that gratitude. And it is hard getting to the gym, getting in those meals, swimming your laps or running those Ks, whatever you're doing. It is work. Yeah. But the reward is the frequency that then gets to call in everything you want in your life.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It really is. And, especially in the last year, I've been reflecting, the body's one area that I feel you can't cheat it. No. It's like, even in business, you can hire amazing people. You can step almost completely out of your companies. You can still be making a lot of money. You could be pretty removed from it all and create a lot of perceived success from the outside. But you can't hire someone to take your body to the gym. You can't get someone to eat those meals for you. You can't tell someone else to think a certain way about your body. Like, it's just, there's really no shortcut, and it is a lot of work. And again, I've been finding the bliss in it. Like, I've really fallen in love with it deeply, and it feels so nourishing and good, and really like a deeper frequency and act of self-love more than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. I say discipline is the greatest form of self-love, and that's what it takes. It takes choosing each and every day. How can I be 1% better today? In whatever way that may look like for you. Yeah. And I'm glad that I started, because, having recently celebrated my 50th birthday, I can say that 30 years of training is what has allowed me to experience the health I have today. And the 20-year-old version of me didn't know that. I was doing it just for vanity and meet girls and look cool, you know. But, as I got older in life, I realized, like, okay, the money, the toys, the cars, all that is great and all, but if you don't have your health, if this, this vessel that we occupy during this lifetime is not healthy, then none of it means anything, And
plus, you look like 30.
Well, thank you.
There's that too.
And as you said before, the body, it's a portal. It is a way for us to expand, our capacity in all aspects, especially in the process of manifestation and just using our energetic field to create the life of our dreams.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been an enlightening conversation. I know that the viewers and listeners have definitely gotten a lot from this, and I just want to say thank you for your generous sharing. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable about your past and all the amazing things that you've done. And I'm just excited to see, what's next for you. The Nest is going to be incredible. Your community in Costa Rica, and this here, Luma Vitae, which I'm still discovering, and I have no doubt is going to be a global success as well. Yes. The hydrogen water. And it's just, it's amazing to meet a fellow entrepreneur who actually has done way more things than I have. And getting to learn and understand how the mind, soul, and the energy of Regan Hillier creates. So thank you for sharing all of that with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
It's been a pleasure to have this conversation.
Wait. Okay, last lightning.
Yeah. Okay. So just want to say thank you again for taking time to be here with us in Collingwood, to generously share your story with us. And for anybody listening or watching, I will put all the contact information for Regan down below. If you've never heard about her, then get out from under your rock, do your research, check out her website, and learn about her, because she's a fascinating woman with a lot of amazing things happening, and on a mission, on a path of deep, deep divine purpose.
Thank you so much, Zarak. It's been amazing being here, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the world and the space that you hold through this podcast, but beyond that, and all the lives that you're impacting is a really beautiful ripple of impact. So thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this podcast and you learned something valuable, then please hit subscribe so you don't miss the future episodes. I'd love it if you share this with a friend and leave us a review. Your feedback is so important to our growth. Thank you for supporting the Path to Purpose podcast. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next episode.